When my son stole every penny we had and vanished into thin air, I thought the betrayal would kill me. For 25 years, silence was the only answer I got, until a young girl knocked on my door, holding a rusty key and saying the words that made my knees go weak. "My father said this belongs to you." I still remember the weight of that morning, the way sunlight slipped weakly through the curtains as if it too sensed that something was horribly wrong. My husband, David, was humming in the kitchen, stirring his tea like he always did, tapping the spoon twice against the cup before setting it aside. It was our quiet ritual, our small comfort in a world that had never been particularly gentle to us. We weren't rich, but we had built a life, brick by slow brick, sacrifice by sacrifice. Our son, Ethan, was the brightest part of that life, or at least he used to be. He had always been different, not in a strange way, just restless, hungry for something bigger than what we could offer. I used to admire that fire in him, but sometimes fire doesn't warm. You learn too late that it burns. The morning it happened, Ethan didn't come down for breakfast. That wasn't unusual. He worked at odd hours and slept even stranger ones. But something in me nagged, a small, sharp tug I couldn't explain. "Give him a few minutes," David muttered, reaching for the newspaper. But I couldn't. I walked down the hall and knocked on Ethan's door. No response. I turned the knob. It opened too easily. His bed was empty, sheets half-tucked, as though he'd pretended to sleep there. His closet hung ajar, and inside was nothing. Not one shirt, not a sock. My stomach twisted. "David!" I called out, my voice barely a whisper. He appeared behind me, his brows furrowing, but the moment he saw the empty closet, he froze. His eyes traveled around the room, dresser doors open, laptop missing, his backpack gone. And then the real horror hit. "The safe," David breathed. The safe was a small metal box hidden beneath the loose floorboard in our bedroom closet. We never told anyone about it, not friends, not relatives, only us and Ethan. Inside were our life savings, decades of scraping, saving, denying ourselves things so that maybe, just maybe, our son could have a better future. We rushed to the closet. David lifted the board with trembling hands. The safe was gone. My knees buckled so fast the world tilted. David caught my arm, but his own body was shaking so violently I could feel it through his grip. All of it. Everything taken. A sickening realization swept through me like a cold wave. Ethan hadn't been robbed. Ethan was the thief. I remember screaming his name, stumbling through the house, as if he might suddenly appear and say it was all a mistake, that he didn't take it, that he didn't leave us. David didn't scream. He was too still, too quiet, and that terrified me more than my own grief. Hours passed in a blur. Police reports, statements, faces that looked at us with pity but confusion. How could parents not see this coming? How could we explain that love blinds you, that sometimes you only see the child they used to be, not the one standing in front of you? Weeks passed without a word. No phone call, no letter, no explanation. It was as though our son had evaporated. The betrayal wasn't just inside the theft. It was the silence. The silence cut deeper than any knife. Years went by. We rebuilt what we could, though rebuild is a generous term. Mostly, we learned to live with the hole inside us. David got quieter. I became the kind of mother who flinched whenever the phone rang. Every night before bed, I'd stare at Ethan's last photo, his graduation picture, smiling in the sunlight, hope shining in his eyes. A hope I would eventually learn wasn't meant for us. Then, one rainy February, everything changed. It had been 25 years since Ethan vanished, 25 birthdays without him, 25 Christmases where we pretended we were fine and fooled no one, 25 years of not knowing whether to hate him or pray for him. David had passed away 3 years earlier, still waiting for a son who never came. It broke him slowly, then all at once. So, when the knock came at my door on that gloomy afternoon, I wasn't expecting anyone, and I certainly wasn't her. She was maybe 19 or 20, thin, soaked from the rain, clutching a small rusted key around her neck on a white string. Her eyes, those eyes stopped me cold. They were Ethan's. Are you Mrs. Mercer?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Yes," I whispered, my heart hammering with a fear I didn't understand. She breathed out shakingly. "My name is Lily," she swallowed. I'm Ethan's daughter." Time didn't just freeze, it shattered. The room tilted, my ears rang, and for a long moment, I didn't know if I was breathing. "Ethan's daughter?" I choked out, gripping the doorframe. Her eyes fell, tears gathering at the corners. She slowly lifted the key from around her neck. "He told me that when I turned 20, I had to find you." Her lip quivered. "He said, 'This key belongs to you.'" She pressed the key into my palm. It was old, heavy, dirty, as though it had lived a long life before finding its way to me. But it was the small engraved number on the side that made my breath catch. 34B. That was a storage unit number, one I had never rented. "What is this?" I whispered. Lily shook her head. "I don't know. He never told me what was inside, just that he owed you everything, and that someday this key would make things right." My heartbeat pounded against my ribs as I stared at the girl who carried Ethan's eyes filled with fear, sorrow, and something else, a secret that had waited 25 years. I closed my fingers around the key, and though my hands were shaking, one thought rose above all the others. What did my son leave behind, and why did he send his daughter to return it? I didn't open the key's meaning right away. I couldn't. My hands were trembling too badly, and my heart felt too full of fear, of hope, of 25 years' worth of unanswered questions. Lily stood in the doorway, wet and shivering, looking so fragile that the mother in me fought through the shock. "Come inside, dear. You'll get sick," I said, my voice breaking. She hesitated, then stepped inside. The moment she crossed the threshold, a strange ache spread through my chest. It wasn't grief exactly, but something close, something like the ghost of all the years I'd lost with Ethan, now suddenly alive in front of me. Wrapped in a towel and holding a warm cup of tea, Lily sat across from me at the kitchen table, Ethan's old seat. It made my breath hitch every time she glanced up. That face, those eyes, that slight tilt of her head, it was like someone reached into the past and pulled my son into the room just long enough to remind me what heartbreak feels like. "I know this is a lot," she said, quietly. I nodded, but didn't speak. I wasn't ready. If I talked too soon, I might break. "My dad, he talked about you a lot," she continued, staring at her tea. "He said he didn't deserve you, that he didn't deserve to come back." My chest tightened so hard I had to steady myself against the table. "Why?" I finally whispered. "Why didn't he deserve us?" She swallowed hard. "He said he made the biggest mistake of his life, and he didn't know how to fix it." I felt myself shrinking inside, collapsing under guilt, under sorrow, under everything I'd buried for so long. "Is he," my voice faltered, "is he alive?" Lily looked up, and the moment I saw the look in her eyes, I knew. She didn't have to say it. I already understood. My boy was gone. I pressed a hand over my mouth, a sob escaping before I could stop it. Lily reached across the table and gently took my hand, her grip surprisingly steady. "He died last year," she whispered. I cried. I cried for the man my son never became, for the father he tried to be, for the finality of death that closed every door I'd prayed would someday open, for all the apologies I would now never hear. But Lily didn't cry, not yet. She simply watched me with a sorrow so deep it looked far too old for her young face. When I finally calmed enough to breathe again, I wiped my eyes and whispered, "Tell me everything." And she did. Her voice was soft, almost fragile, but every word felt like a stone dropped into a still lake, sending ripples through the quiet kitchen. "My dad never talked about his past," she said, "not until the last year of his life. He was sick, very sick, and one night he couldn't sleep. He sat by my bed and told me there were things he never wanted me to know, but that he couldn't leave without saying them. She paused, twisting the string of the necklace that no longer held the key. He told me he wasn't a good son, that he made choices he regretted, that he hurt you, and that he could never face you again. But he also said he loved you. He said he wished he could undo everything. Tears slipped down my cheeks, silent and unstoppable. I asked him why he didn't come back, Lily continued. He just said he didn't have the right. My hands curled into fists. Every parent wants their child home, I whispered, even broken, even lost. Lily nodded, her expression tightening. He knew that, but he said he wasn't ready to face what he'd done. He told me he took something he shouldn't have and that it ruined the only family he'd ever had. A heavy silence settled between us, filled with grief and old wounds. Then she pulled something from her backpack, an envelope, yellowed with age, edges frayed, my name written on the front in a handwriting I hadn't seen in 25 years. My breath caught. "I was supposed to give you this along with the key," she said. I stared at the envelope, afraid to touch it, afraid it would tear apart in my hands, afraid it would tear me apart. But Lily gently slid it across the table, and when my shaking fingers picked it up, I felt the world shift. It was real. It was him. Inside the envelope was a single sheet of paper, creased and worn. I unfolded it slowly, my vision blurring as I recognized Ethan's handwriting, older than the last time I'd seen it, shakier, but unmistakably his. "Mom, if you're reading this, it means I never got to come home, and that's my fault. Not because I didn't want to, but because I couldn't face you after what I did. I took your savings. I broke your trust. I ruined everything you and Dad worked so hard for. I thought if I could make something of myself, I'd come back and repay every cent. But life didn't go the way I planned. I got deeper than I expected, and I couldn't climb out. I lived with regret every single day. I tried to be a better man for my daughter, and I hope she tells you I tried. But I know I can't undo what I did. I can only leave behind the truth. What I took, it wasn't all I stole. I stole your peace, your love, your hope. I'm sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry. The key will explain the rest. I hope someday you can forgive me, even if I don't deserve it. Love, Ethan." By the time I reached the last line, my tears had soaked the page. My hands shook so violently, Lily rushed around the table and hugged me. I held on to her like she was the last piece of Ethan I had left, because she was. When my crying finally settled, I whispered, "What does the key open?" "I don't know," she said softly, "but he said whatever's in that storage unit, it belongs to you." I stared at the key again, heavy, cold, number 34B engraved on its side. It felt like a relic of a life I didn't understand anymore. A part of me was terrified of what it might reveal. Another part was desperate for any scrap of Ethan's truth. I took a deep, shuddering breath. "Will you come with me?" I asked. Lily nodded immediately. Of course. We left the house that very afternoon. The sky was still gray, rain misting the air, as though the world could sense the heaviness of what we were about to uncover. The storage facility was on the outskirts of town, quiet, isolated, rows of blue metal doors stretching endlessly in both directions, a place meant for forgotten things. A place my son had chosen to hide something for 25 years. As we walked down the long corridor of units, my heart pounded louder, harder. With each step, the key in my hand felt heavier, as if dragging the weight of the past behind me. When we reached Unit 34B, I stopped. My breath came out in shaky bursts. Lily put a hand on my arm. "It's okay," she whispered. But she didn't know. She couldn't know. This door wasn't just a door. It was 25 years of pain, 25 years of questions, 25 years of wondering whether I had failed my son or whether he had simply chosen a path I couldn't have altered. My fingers trembled as I slid the key into the lock. It fit perfectly. With a soft click, the lock turned. I hesitated, held my breath, and then slowly lifted the door. The metal creaked loudly as it rolled up, dust raining from the edges. Inside, darkness. thick, heavy, smelling of dust and time. Lily pulled out her phone flashlight, illuminating the small space. At first, I couldn't make sense of what I was seeing. Boxes stacked neatly along the walls, a small metal cabinet, a wooden chest in the corner, papers pinned to a corkboard. But then, something caught my eye. In the center of the storage unit was a large, old suitcase. On top of it lay a folded blanket, and sitting on the blanket was a photograph. I stepped closer, my heart lodged in my throat. It was a picture of me and David, taken the year before Ethan disappeared. We were standing in front of our old house, smiling, proud, hopeful. Behind it, attached with a strip of tape, was a note. 3 words. I kept everything. The room spun. My knees buckled. Lily caught me. What does that mean?" she whispered. But I knew. Somehow, impossibly, I knew. That suitcase, that storage unit, the neatness, the careful arrangement, Ethan hadn't run away to destroy us. He had run away to protect us. And whatever he had kept here, whatever he had stored away for 25 years, was the truth he never had the courage to tell. My hands shook as I reached toward the suitcase, because I knew. Once I opened it, nothing in my life would ever be the same again. My hand hovered over the suitcase, trembling as if it could sense the weight of what lay inside. Lily stood silently beside me, her breath catching in the dim, dusty air. I could hear my heartbeat echoing in my ears, slow, heavy, and frightened. 25 years of grief, anger, and confusion, all narrowed into this one moment, this one suitcase. I closed my eyes, whispered a prayer for strength, and unlatched the case. The lid creaked open. Inside, neatly packed, were bundles of paper, files stacked meticulously, each bound with rubber bands that had grown brittle with age. And beneath them, a second layer. Bags. Several small canvas bags I recognized instantly, even after all these years. Bank bags. The kind used to transport large sums of cash. My breath froze. Lily leaned forward, her eyes widening. What is all this? With shaking hands, I lifted the first bank bag. It was heavier than I expected. My fingers hesitated at the zipper, but then, slowly, I opened it. Money. Stacks of bills, old, crisp, bundled in bands, untouched by time. I felt dizzy. The floor seemed to tilt beneath me. "How?" I whispered. Lily swallowed hard. "Did he return it?" "No," I said, my voice trembling. "This is far more than what he stole. We didn't have anywhere near this much." I lifted the next bag, and the next, and the next. Each one was filled with money, more than I'd ever seen in my life, more than David had ever dreamed of, more than Ethan could have earned honestly. My mind raced, my heart thudded painfully. In the bottom of the suitcase, beneath the mountain of paper files, I found a smaller envelope with my name written on it. Not Mom, like the first letter, just my name, Elaine. I opened it, my breath shaking as I unfolded the paper. "Mom, if you've opened the suitcase, then you already know this isn't about money. Not really. It never was. I didn't run away because I wanted to hurt you. I ran because I had to, because staying would have put you and Dad in danger. And I know you won't believe me at first. You'll think I'm making excuses. I deserve that. But please, read everything. Read the files. You and Dad were the only good things in my life, and the only reason I lived as long as I did was because I stayed away. The men I got involved with, they wanted the money. They wanted me. And when I realized what I'd gotten myself into, it was too late. If I had stayed, they would have come for all of us. I stole the money to protect you, not from you. The money in this suitcase isn't yours to repay. It isn't clean. But I needed to keep it safe so no one could use it to find me or you. I didn't know who I would become. I didn't know if I'd ever have a chance to make things right. I didn't become a good man. But I tried to be a good father. Tell Lily I'm sorry. Tell her I loved her more than life. And tell her she saved me. Mom, I know you deserved better than this. I hope someday you can forgive me. Ethan. The letter slipped from my fingers as a sob clawed up my throat. All these years, all those lonely nights spent hating him, resenting him, imagining him living his life far away from us, indifferent to the devastation he caused. But he hadn't been indifferent. He had been running. He had been protecting us. Lily placed a hand on my shoulder. I didn't know, she whispered. He never told me this part, I swear. I know, I managed, wiping my tears. He didn't want you carrying his burdens. I looked at the stacks of files, police reports, witness statements, scribbled notes, photographs, papers naming men I didn't recognize, names crossed out, addresses circled, references to gangs, threats, debts, betrayals. Ethan had fallen into something dark, something dangerous, and instead of dragging us into it, he'd cut himself out of our lives completely. It shattered me. It broke something inside me that I didn't know was still fragile. He didn't leave because he didn't love us, I whispered. He left because he did. Lily's eyes filled with tears. She covered her mouth to stifle a sob. For a long moment, we just stood there, surrounded by dusty memories and secrets buried in metal walls. Then I noticed something else, something half hidden beneath an old jacket in the corner of the unit. A photo album. My heart stuttered. I picked it up, brushing away the dust. When I opened the first page, my breath caught. It was filled with pictures, hundreds of them. Pictures of me and David, pictures from our trips, birthday photos, random snapshots from years before Ethan disappeared. All stolen from the house, taken with him when he ran. He had kept them, all of them, for 25 years. Lily leaned over my shoulder, whispering, "He looked at those all the time. Sometimes I'd come home and catch him crying over them." Tears blurred my vision. "And he never told us," I whispered. "He didn't want you to know what his life had become," Lily said softly. "He didn't want you to see him like that." I pressed the album to my chest, my tears soaking into the dusty cover. "He was still my boy," I whispered, "no matter what he did." "I know." Lily helped me gather the papers and bags. As we worked, she told me more, how Ethan had become a mechanic in a small town, how he'd never remarried, how he lived modestly, quietly, far away from the people who had once hunted him, how he had taken Lily in when our lover died and raised her as best he could, and how, at the end, he had begged her to deliver the key. "He said you were the only person who ever loved him without asking for anything in return," she whispered. My knees gave out. I sank to the floor, sobbing so hard my body shook. Lily sat next to me, wrapping her arms around me, and in that moment, it felt like Ethan was there too, holding on to both of us. Eventually, when the tears subsided, I looked around the storage unit again. At the money, the files, the photos, the pieces of a life lived in shadows. "What am I supposed to do with all of this?" I whispered. Lily wiped her face. "I don't know, but I'll help you." I looked at her, this young woman who carried Ethan's eyes, his quiet strength, his sadness. She was his legacy, his apology, his hope, the part of him that had come home, even if he never could. "We'll face it together," I said softly, taking her hand. We packed everything into my car. The rain had stopped outside, the sky clearing into a pale silver. For the first time in years, I felt the weight in my chest soften. Not disappear, but shift, transform. Grief was still there, but now it shared space with something gentler. Understanding, forgiveness, love. When we arrived back at my house, Lily hesitated at the door. "Are you sure you want me to stay?" she asked. I opened the door wide. "Your family. This is your home now." Her eyes filled with tears, and she nodded. Inside, the house felt warmer, different, as if the darkness that had choked it for years had finally lifted. We set the photo album on the table. I traced my fingertips over its cover. My son kept everything, I whispered. Lily put her hand over mine. And so will we, she said. That night, for the first time in 25 years, I didn't cry myself to sleep. I fell asleep holding the album, holding Ethan's memory, his truth, his pain, and his love. And when morning sunlight filtered through the curtains, I felt something I hadn't felt in a very long time.